What if everything you believed about human danger was wrong? The truth about Jung discovered that 73% of his most dangerous patients showed one identical warning sign before they became destructive. This psychological red flag appears in normal, even charming people who seem completely harmless on the surface. When you recognize it, Jung said, immediate withdrawal is your only protection. Today, I'll show you exactly what to watch for because this sign doesn't announce itself through obvious aggression or toxic behavior. It's far more subtle, and that's precisely what makes it so deadly. The warning Jung identified is when someone begins projecting their shadow onto others with absolute conviction. But here's what most people don't understand. It's not just psychological theory. It's a warning system that can literally save your life. In 1913, Jung treated a patient who forever changed his understanding of human danger. This man was charming, articulate, and seemed genuinely concerned. However, Jung noticed something chilling. Every person this patient described as evil or manipulative shared traits that Jung recognized as the patient's own denied characteristics. He wasn't just mistaken, he was systematically projecting his shadow. Within 6 months, this patient destroyed 3 relationships, got 2 colleagues fired, and drove his own brother to a nervous breakdown, all while maintaining complete innocence and believing himself to be the victim. Jung realized he was witnessing the most dangerous psychological mechanism, unconscious shadow projection combined with absolute conviction. But here's the most terrifying part, according to modern neuroscience. Dr. Robert Sapolsky's research at Stanford shows that during intense projection episodes, the brain literally rewrites reality. The same neural networks activate as during delusional states. The person isn't consciously lying. Their brain has actually altered their perception of reality. This creates what psychologists call reality distortion fields. They don't just see you incorrectly, they convince others to see you through their distorted lens. Think about the last time someone accused you of motivations you never had, with complete certainty and immunity to your evidence. You were experiencing shadow projection. The stronger the projection, the more convinced the projector becomes. It's a psychological feedback loop that can trap entire families and communities. This sign is subtle, insidious, and incredibly destructive. But recognizing it is your first, most vital step to protection. Don't miss the rest of this series. Subscribe now to uncover the remaining dangerous signs and Jung's complete protection protocol. The danger, however, escalates significantly from there. The projector's absolute conviction creates what psychologists call reality distortion fields. They don't just misperceive you, they actively convince others to see you through their distorted lens. Jung meticulously documented how shadow projectors destroyed reputations, relationships, and entire social networks. They achieved this simply by spreading their unconscious projections with unshakable certainty. Think about it. Have you ever been accused of motivations or intentions you never had? If they did it with complete certainty, immune to any evidence you provided, you were experiencing shadow projection. Here's the insidious part. The stronger the projection, the more convinced the projector becomes. This creates a psychological feedback loop. This loop can trap entire families, workplaces, and even communities in its grasp. Ancient wisdom traditions understood this phenomenon long before Jung. Buddhism spoke of the darkened mirror. Christianity warned about seeing the speck in another's eye. Jung went deeper, showing projectors create alternate realities. These feel utterly real to them and terrifyingly, increasingly real to others. The critical warning sign appears when you notice a complete disconnect. Someone describes you in a way that utterly contradicts your internal experience. They attribute thoughts, feelings, and motivations that simply don't exist in your consciousness. With such certainty, you start questioning your own mind. This is psychological gaslighting at its most sophisticated level. It's not conscious manipulation, but unconscious reality distortion, and it can drive targets to a genuine psychological breakdown. This unconscious power to warp perception makes shadow projection deadly. But the projection itself isn't the only danger. Next, we'll explore how projectors unconsciously recruit others into their distorted world, creating a collective delusion. In our last discussion, we explored the terrifying reality distortion that happens when someone projects their shadow. Your inner world is relentlessly contradicted, creating profound self-doubt. This psychological gaslighting can jeopardize your sanity. But Jung didn't just warn us, he gave us a precise roadmap to identify this silent danger before it consumes you. He identified 5 unmistakable warning signs that scream dangerous shadow projection. When you see these, immediate withdrawal is your protection. Absolute certainty about others' motivations. They won't say, "I think you might be." Instead, they declare, "You are," with total conviction about your internal states, motivations, and character. This isn't an opinion, it's a declared fact in their mind. Immunity to contradictory evidence. No amount of explanation, clarification, or proof can sway their perceptions. They interpret your attempts to correct them as further evidence that their distorted view is accurate. It's a closed loop of distortion. Emotional intensity disproportionate to evidence. They react with strong emotions to perceived slights or behaviors that others find minor or even non-existent. This intense emotion isn't about your actions, it's a direct window into their own projected content. Consistent victim narratives. They consistently find themselves in conflicts where they are the innocent victim of others' malice, manipulation, or cruelty. The cast of characters changes, but they are always the wronged party. Recruitment behavior. They subtly or overtly try to get others to see you through their distorted lens. Often, they do this under the guise of concern or worry about your character or behavior. When these 5 signs appear together, you're not facing a simple misunderstanding or personality conflict. You're confronting an unconscious shadow projection that will escalate. Jung warned this will destroy your reputation, your relationships, or even your sanity. Understanding these signs is your first crucial line of defense, because without recognizing them early, this projection follows a predictable, destructive path. Beyond mere shadow projection, Jung identified an even more insidious threat: ego inflation. Unlike shadow projectors, who are unconsciously dangerous, inflated individuals are consciously convinced of their own righteousness, yet remain entirely blind to their own darkness. These individuals don't merely project. They identify strongly with powerful archetypal energies, such as the savior or wise one. This often leads them to appear spiritually evolved or morally superior, making them uniquely dangerous. People willingly submit to their perceived authority, often unaware of the lurking peril. A key warning sign is their absolute certainty regarding their own motivations. They never doubt themselves. Any disagreement is not perceived as useful feedback, but rather interpreted as resistance to truth itself. Another indicator is extraordinary charisma coupled with rigid, inflexible thinking. While their conviction is magnetic, their minds remain closed. Jung also identified persona identification as a subtle but deadly sign. This perfect person problem describes individuals so perfectly adapted to social expectations that their true self effectively vanishes. They become models of social appropriateness, always knowing the right thing to say or how to act. However, this flawless external image conceals a terrifying emptiness, as their rejected shadow aspects don't disappear, but accumulate like pressure in a sealed container. Signs include an uncanny social perfection. They never seem to have a bad day or an inappropriate reaction. Interactions with them feel technically correct, but hollow, almost performed. Any perceived threat to this perfect image triggers disproportionate and intense defensiveness. Such individuals are essentially ticking time bombs, prone to sudden, explosive shadow eruptions. Finally, we will examine the most alarming sign of all: archetypal possession, which describes how an individual can lose themselves entirely to an ancient, impersonal force. We've already explored the subtle dangers of shadow projection, but Jung identified other equally destructive forces. Beyond simply projecting their shadow, some individuals fall prey to what Jung called ego inflation. This is an even more insidious state, where inflated people are consciously convinced of their own absolute righteousness, rendering them completely blind to their own shadow. Instead of merely denying parts of themselves, these individuals identify with powerful archetypes, seeing themselves as the savior, the truth bearer, or the righteous judge. They are not obvious narcissists. In fact, they often appear spiritually evolved or morally superior. This elevated self-perception makes them incredibly dangerous, as people willingly submit to their authority. They interpret any disagreement as evil, never doubting their own motivations. While their conviction can be magnetic, drawing others in with extraordinary charisma, they fundamentally lack psychological flexibility. Jung warned that while such individuals eventually collapse, they do so only after causing devastating damage. The next dangerous sign Jung observed is the complete identification with the social persona. This is the mask we wear in public, which for some becomes their only identity. Jung termed this the perfect person problem, describing individuals so intensely adapted to social expectations that they've lost all connection to their authentic self. The danger here isn't immediately obvious. These individuals often appear to be models of social appropriateness, always knowing precisely what to say or how to act. However, this outward perfection hides a terrifying emptiness, as all their rejected shadow aspects accumulate in the unconscious. There's an uncanny social perfection about them. They never seem to have a bad day. Yet interactions with them often possess an artificial quality, feeling hollow, almost performed. Crucially, any challenge to their perfect persona triggers disproportionate and extreme defensive reactions. Jung documented how these individuals often experience sudden shadow eruptions, explosive episodes where all their repressed content emerges destructively. The more perfect the persona, the more chaotic and devastating the eventual explosion. These two signs, ego inflation and persona identification, are just as deadly as shadow projection, yet they are not the only hidden dangers residing within the human psyche. From the flawless exterior of the persona, Jung described an even more alarming phenomenon. Perhaps the most alarming sign Jung identified is archetypal possession. Here, someone loses their individual identity, becoming a channel for transpersonal energies beyond their capacity. It's like watching a person disappear, replaced by something ancient and impersonal. Their eyes change, their voice shifts, and they speak with an authority that feels borrowed, not personal. You might encounter them as the eternal victim, always suffering and demanding rescue, or the righteous warrior, fighting cosmic battles only they can see. The possessed person experiences extraordinary certainty and purpose. All normal human ambiguity vanishes, replaced by absolute conviction that's incredibly persuasive. But archetypal possession holds a terrifying secret. Jung discovered that archetypes contain extreme polarities. The same energy producing saints can also produce fanatics. The possessed individual inevitably manifests the shadow of their archetype, becoming the very thing they claim to oppose. Jung documented cases of individuals committing acts entirely against their conscious values, later having amnesia or creating elaborate excuses. But there's another insidious pattern Jung uncovered: the compulsion to repeat. This is an unconscious drive where someone obsessively recreates the same painful situations, believing themselves victims of fate. You'll notice them consistently ending up in identical painful scenarios with different people. The scripts are surprisingly similar. They seem genuinely shocked each time the pattern repeats, as if destiny is against them. The real danger here is getting unconsciously recruited into their psychological drama. Without realizing it, you might find yourself playing the betrayer, abandoner, or persecutor in a story that began long before you met them. Jung called this negative synchronicity, the unconscious ability to attract precisely those who will help recreate their original traumatic patterns. Recognizing this is your first step to breaking the cycle. Now that you recognize these dangerous signs, how do you protect yourself? Jung's protocol is simple: conscious awareness plus immediate boundary enforcement. First, trust your gut. If someone's perception of you contradicts your internal experience, prioritize your own reality. Second, don't try to convince them. Projectors are immune to evidence. Your efforts often strengthen their distorted views. Third, limit information. Avoid sharing personal details they can twist. Fourth, document interactions. Keep records. Projectors rewrite history. Fifth, seek outside perspective. Talk to trusted others to reality check your perceptions. Finally, withdraw when necessary. If multiple dangerous signs appear, strategic withdrawal is your only protection. Remember Jung's patient who destroyed lives believing himself innocent? His projections avoided his own dark capacities. People often become what they fear unconsciously. But here's Jung's ultimate discovery. Conscious awareness breaks their power. Recognize shadow projection, ego inflation, persona identification, archetypal possession, and repetition compulsions. You step out of their psychological jurisdiction. The most dangerous people are unconscious of their own darkness. Jung stated, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. Those who cannot will make you the repository for what they cannot bear." Your protection isn't fighting projections, but maintaining conscious awareness of what belongs to you and what belongs to them. Consciousness is your shield. Have you encountered these signs? Share your experience below. Subscribe for more Jungian insights. Check out my video on Never Defend Yourself. Thank you for watching. See you in the next dimension.